welcome to the Ascension Ready webinar. This webinar, we are going to be talking a lot about really exciting things that are in the works at the global level. Now, I want to start off by saying that the information I will be sharing with you is really meant as a wake-up call, a reminder as to why you incarnated here and now, right? Some of the information I will present, depending on the consciousness you have, the antenna you have, the blockages you have, might be perceived and interpreted in a very different way. And I'm very aware of that. For many people, a lot of this information will cause stress, fear, panic. However, when you see this information, when you perceive it, interpret it from a higher perspective, it is quite the opposite. It's an enlightening information. An information, like I said, meant to wake you up, to remind you of why you're here, what your purpose is, and what's your mission is all about. So without further ado, let's dive in, and you'll see how everything ties in with Ascension and how you can utilize this information to step up, to upgrade your consciousness and live at a higher level of awareness, all right? And ensure that right now, not waiting for a future, but right now, and as you move through time, you have the best life that you could have, okay? So welcome, Daksha, Lisa, Mina, Sarah, all of you watching the recording. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and start sharing the screen. So I do have a presentation ready for you. I already said this, the disclaimer, the information is meant to empower you, all right? So the purpose is view it from your higher self. If at any moment you get triggered, let me know, because those are opportunities for us to work on, all right? Anytime you get triggered by anything, that is showing you what you need to work on. And once you process, unwind that, you get to a level of awareness where that which triggered you actually became an entry point to your expansion, to your awakening. And you begin to see, perceive, and feel things differently. Now, the current state of the world, I know. In the past few years, it looks and it has felt like we have lived through some sort of drama movie, action movie, sci-fi movie, you name it, right? The world has been in a state of transformation. And we have seen many things being revealed, many things come to the surface, many agendas, but also at the energetic level, we have been witnessing incredible things. And this is mainly the topic that we're going to touch on today, but this is all interconnected, right? The shadow self collective is being rebuilt, it's being purged. And this is connected, it's influenced by all these galactic events that are happening with the cosmos, with our sun, and how it affects the earth. In my newsletter, I mentioned how this is in a way similar to ayahuasca, right? Where when you decide to take this medicine, first you go through the preparation. Imagine you're incarnating, right? You're deciding to incarnate in this moment in time. And you are going into the space setting the intent, okay, I'm going to go into this life, into this lifetime with these parents in this location, with these circumstances. You're preparing. And then you go in and, you're born. Many of us, kind of forget for a while who we are, why we're here. And then things start to come out. We start remembering, right? We start purging. We start, it's usually pain, catalyst that wakes us up, right? Let me know if for you that was your experience or is your experience, right? Because we have continuous moments of awakenings throughout life, and many of them are triggered, are ignited by tough pain, tough times, and things that no longer serve us, that come to the surface for us to process, to unwind. So very similar to ayahuasca, you take the medicine, which, it doesn't have a really good taste, very bitter. You take it, you sit down, you meditate, and slowly it starts having its effect. And one of the first things that happens is that you start purging. And many shamans and what they say is that this purging is literally you're purging toxic negative energies. And if you've ever done it, when you're purging, just any normal purging is not nice, but with ayahuasca it's very intense. But then finally the storm settles and you are catapulted, you are launched into this transcendental space. I see this in a very similar fashion. We are right now in that process of purging, of letting go, making more space so that we can go into this hyper transcendental state of awareness. And it goes through waves, right? It's not like one ayahuasca session. It's like multiple, right? Because I've been in this journey and I've been purging and expanding, and awakening and raising my frequency. But as a collective, we are on that stage where the shadow is coming up and you can see clearly, in a way more intense and on your face than ever before. So the earth and the sun go through cycles, right? It's clockwork. It's kind of, when you study these universal laws, there's a universal law of rhythm, cycles, everything in working in divine right order. There are these cycles of creation, destruction, order, chaos. It's ever evolving. And the earth as an organism, it's the same. It goes through these cycles. And these cycles have been, in the last 70 years, well, I'll go more into detail later on, but they have studied some of these cycles with evidence as to what happened during these cycles. And so the most important ones happen every 1,500 years and then 6,000 years. But when they sync together, every 12,000 years, something big occurs on a global scale. And right now we are on that 12,000 year mark. You'll see why as we go back 12,000 years, what occurred and how scientists have been monitoring this. And we are on the cusp of this cycle. We're on the red zone, so to speak. And usually what happens during these 12,000 year cycles is that a magnetic pole shift occurs. Right? They cause the poles to shift. And not only the magnetic ones, talk later on how it can completely tilt the earth in a very drastic way. So what happens is that every 12,000 years, the sun sends a major blast an X flare of severe magnitude, that blast of electromagnetic energy that goes through the Earth. Now, we have a geomagnetic field, right? The magnetic field of the Earth that protects us from this solar radiation and space radiation. But usually when you have these major blasts, even when the Earth's magnetic field is at 100%, it will have an impact. But when it's weaker, even more so. So when the magnetic field of the Earth is in a weak state, then you can amplify the power of these major blasts. It's so powerful that it actually fully melts the crust and the mantle that are touching each other, and it greatly affects the electrothermal equilibrium that exists between these two layers. So this obviously throws that out of balance. And so this basically translates into the Earth's crust not being locked into place anymore, and the Earth magnetic poles shifting in a dramatic way. We'll talk about what happens when that occurs and what are the repercussions or consequences on a physical level and spiritual level. 12,000 years ago was the fall of Atlantis. And it coincided perfectly with one of these cycles. And Atlantis, when you study it, I'm no expert on it, but I know people who have studied greatly. And the evidence points that it was really a global civilization, an epoch of time. Right? It wasn't located in just one area. Yes, the capital evidence suggests that it's most likely situated in the Sahara Desert, also known as the Eye of Sahara or the Richat structure. There's evidence that that was the capital, but that the civilization, the culture of Atlantis expanded globally. And it was said to be a very advanced civilization. All of a sudden, it disappeared. And it was 12,000 years ago, and you'll see how this correlates with these cycles. So most likely, everything points out that the fall of Atlantis or the transformation of Atlantis happened during these one of these 12,000 year geomagnetic cycles or shifts. Now let's talk about the Sun-Earth phenomenon and what these cycles, how scientists have been monitoring them, and where we are right now. So they've been described through history and ancient religious texts. I'll share some of that later on. However, around 70 years ago, science started to confirm this Sun-Earth phenomenon. And they saw that 36,000 years ago, there was an event called the Mono Lake. Then 30,000 years, an unnamed event. 24,000 years ago, Lake Mungo. You can look this up later on if you want to kind of dive deep into this. 18,000 years ago, this one was a minor event. And then the Gothenburg, 12,000 years ago, which coincides with the fall of Atlantis, was a major event. Then the China event, that's a minor one. And now, where we sit right now in time, we are due for a major. So it goes minor, major, minor, major. Remember, because it's 1,500 years, 6,000 years, and when they combine every 12,000 years, you have this major cycle. And so the Earth's field is shifting again, and we'll see, all the evidence that points towards that. One of the most fascinating things is the Arctic ice. In the last century, there have been many expeditions to the North Pole and South Pole. And in some of those expeditions, military expeditions, they started drilling the Arctic ice. And what they found stunned them. Beneath the sediment, they found that there were layers separated by 12,000 years. So when they started digging, the top layers were mostly Arctic ice, polar fossils, right? What you would find in a Arctic environment. The fauna, the flora that would go with Arctic weather and climate. But then below that, they started finding tropical fossils. What? They kept digging. So Arctic fossil, 12,000 years, then tropical fossils in the other 12,000 years, and then Arctic, and then tropical. And then it kept on repeating and repeating. So there was a major shift happening. This meant that every 12,000 years, the poles shifted into the equator. And what we know as the North and South Pole were tropical, were actually located at the equator. And this happened multiple times. And you would have very different climate for obvious reasons. So this is kind of what the poles, the magnetic poles, are currently moving at a very high rate. You know, the speed of the magnetic poles shifting has been moving a lot. And this is where kind of the map would be, where they move, where they shift, where they would be. And you could see right there in the equator, that would be the location of the poles. If that happens, that's a major, major change. Here's an article, The New Scientist, When Crocodiles Roam the Arctic. So in one of these expeditions, they started finding crocodiles. As you know, crocodiles are cold-blooded animals that would definitely not survive in Arctic climate. But they found fossils, which meant that they were there, living there at one point in time. And if that was the case, then it had to be tropical. Recently, there's a very recent discovery. I think it's called the Alaska graveyard or something like that. This guy bought a lot of land, private land, for excavating gold and finding gold. And what they've been finding in terms of fossils has baffled the scientific community. And many strange things have been happening. The person has sent many of these samples to universities, and they haven't been returned. They have sold them off. No communication. But there are so many fossils that they're taking action and having them independently studied now. But this is the thing. More and more things are being revealed. Of course, with this information, imagine telling the masses that every 12,000 years, there's a massive shift, energetic climate shift. They didn't want this information to be revealed, because this is what governments do, right? They love controlling information and covering up information. So they did everything to cover up these findings. And what they say is that these geomagnetic pole shifts that have happened hundreds of times, that the Earth's crust doesn't shift, and that there are no cataclysmic in nature. Of course, because they don't want people panicking, freaking out, etc. They always like to control everything, especially the public's reactions. So this event is a major player for our climate and can translate into 200% increase in space radiation and up to 60% reduction in ozone layer, which is huge. Now, the thing is, as we will discuss later on, is that you can prepare in many ways, right? Many people think of radiation as something bad, but your body can handle a lot of radiation if you are in an optimal state. For example, when Chernobyl happened, there have been many instances of people in Chernobyl or other accounts. There was this account of a guy in the military when they were doing atomic bombs and atomic bomb testing and dealing with radiation spillage, etc. I encountered two accounts, one from Chernobyl and one from the military, where these people were exposed to insane amounts of radiation. The Chernobyl example was this woman, very, very young woman. She experienced that obviously very early on. She was a child, but she grew up and she had radiation poisoning, etc. But through her diet, she was able to completely heal herself and basically transform her body and combat this radiation. The same with the guy from the military. Later on, if you're very interested in those stories, I can look them up. I don't remember their names, but I know how to search them. So anyway, there are many things that you can do. And radiation can have actually beneficial effects into your body. You see all these movies, right, where people get superpowers from radiation. They're always spilling some kind of truth through movies and programs. Obviously, they fantasize it, extrapolate it. It's not always accurate, but you can see that it does affect your DNA. Now, the sun in ancient texts and religions. Right? I love to look at many different sources, right? I'm not a religious person per se, not Christian or any other. I don't affiliate with any religion, but I know that these texts do have a lot of important messages. And yes, some of them have been greatly edited, but they left a lot of information in. And when you look at how many parallels are in different cultures and times to different ancient texts and how they coincide, you can't ignore that, right? We look at these ancient civilizations and we marvel at how they use math, astronomy, and science that changed the world forever. But all of a sudden, when they're talking about these stories, we should ignore them? No, right? So, for example, Joshua 10:13, it says, "So the sun stood still and the moon stopped. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and did not set as on a normal day." The book of Enoch, chapter 65, "And Noah saw the earth turned over." Jesus said in the book of John, "As it was in the day of Noah, so shall it be. As it was in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, with the fire and brimstone from the heavens, so shall it be." And then he adds, "The righteous will shine as the sun." Always pointing towards the sun. Sodom, Gomorrah, in a way, you take kind of what that means, and you can see right now in the world how many of these things are coming to the light. Many people getting lost in vices and in sinful behaviors, etc. And kind of how the governments, other big media corporations are behaving. We're seeing kind of that correlation. The Quran, "He who seeks repentance from the Lord before the rising from the sun from the west, Allah turns to him with mercy." Right? So obviously this is from a religious perspective, a religious context, but look at the sun. Right? The earth stood still. The sun rose from the west. The sun and the earth and the moon stopped. All these things are very relevant to what happens when there is a pole shift and an earth pole shift, both magnetic and on the surface as well. This is what happens. You'll see the sun, it will appear as if it's not moving, and it will appear like it is rising from the west. Okay. Now, how does this affect human psyche and biology? So these are really galactic cycles that affect every single planet in our solar system and our sun. These galactic magnetic field shifts not only affect the Earth, but also the consciousness of every single living thing in it. Space radiation impacts the hippocampus and causes cognitive diminution. It also excites the locus coeruleus, which is a nucleus located in the pons of the brainstem that is involved in physiological response to stress and panic. So again, you see how in the recent years, people have been more prone to stress, to panic. Many people's cognitive abilities, in a way, have diminished, where things that seem common sense and obvious have been ignored by the masses, and they've been in some sort of a trance. Now, many people are starting to wake up from that. So you have these effects on the psyche and biology of humanity. And again, this connected us, this is all what ties in. In a way, when you see this information, you can see that all of this is a cycle. And when you see what, the powers that were, powers that be, are trying to do to kind of stop or control this, everything is planned. And everything they do, at some level, they are aware of what's happening, and they take advantage of that, and they put in motion things and events to, in a way, take advantage of the susceptibility of humanity and all that is happening, to counteract or try to prevent the beneficial effects of this space radiation, the galactic and Earth shift. Because remember, this is not only at the energetic level of solar space radiation, but also higher dimensional energy. So when will this occur? Here you have a paper from Berkeley News that says that the magnetic field could flip within a human lifetime, as little as 80 years. This paper was published in 2014, and based on that paper, we're past the 80-year mark. So we're in the red zone. So you can look up that paper, read it if you are interested in that. But basically, everything points that we are going through this right now, and it could happen at any given moment. We'll talk more about the timeline. So doing the math on how fast the magnetic poles are moving and how fast the magnetic field of the Earth is weakening, it looks like we will experience this global event somewhere around 2030s. No one can pinpoint exactly when, but it looks like in the worst case scenario, it could be a few years, and I put on air quotes worst case scenario, because the people who see this as a cataclysm, as something to be feared or panic about, will see it as something bad. And the best case scenario would be the 2040s, but that is not looking so much as a possibility. Again, when we examine the future, we can only talk about probable futures, because a future is not set in stone. The future actually is an infinite spectrum of probable futures. But that being said, usually the future timeline that collapses, that comes into manifestation, is the one where we resonate with the most. So for example, you as an individual, you go to a psychic. The psychic, depending on how clear they are, how evolved they are, and their veils, etc. Many will be good, average, or great. Let's say you go to a good or great psychic, and they're tuning into your future. They tell, this is what will happen, this and this and this and that. Is that guaranteed to happen? Nope, because they're tuning into a probable future. And what that means is that with your current frequency and kind of the choices that you've taken up until that moment, and your frequency and the choices you're most likely to take, you will resonate with that probable future. That being said, you can, because you have free will, make a different set of choices to change that probable future and tune into a different timeline. This is happening all the time. There are certain probable futures that are very energetically charged for you as an individual and for the collective. So when I tune in to the probable futures of the collective of humanity, this probable future seems very charged, feels very charged. But that being said, all of this can change. I could be completely wrong. The scientists could be completely wrong. I stay open to the possibilities. Why? Because I know the nature of the probable futures. Like I said, it looks very charged, looks very probable, but that doesn't mean that it's certain. And that's why it's always fluctuating, because of our individual collective choices, everything that is happening energetically here in the higher dimensions as well, because we are not alone. You, me, we have a higher self. So we're here incarnated, but we also have a higher self watching, supporting. Yours, mine, and so does everyone else, and including other entities that are non-earth, non-incarnating, that are supporting, watching, and assisting without violating free will. That's one of the things. They're not coming to save us or interfere, but work in a way where if we're up to it, if we rise to it, we can receive and do it, co-create it ourselves. So there have been some accelerations of how fast the poles are moving that are indicating this type of event is near. At the beginning of the millennium, there was an acceleration and another one in 2017. It has accelerated to somewhere between 70 to 80 miles a year. So in terms of technology, they have to recalibrate satellites and many things, because when the magnetic poles move, there's a lot of technology that is dependent on that, right? And not to mention animals who also react to magnetic poles. Now, let's talk about the magnetic field strength. This is something I mentioned in the newsletter, but I'll go over again. So the magnetic field strength, what protects the Earth from the space radiation, usually changes less than 1% in a span of 1,000 years. 1% in 1,000 years. That gives you kind of a good idea of the amount of change and the span of time. So from about 1859 to the year 2000, roughly 150 years, we have lost about 10% the Earth's magnetic field. So take 1,000, and now, which is usually 1%, and now in 150 years, 10%. That's a huge increase, exponential increase, but it doesn't stop there. Since the year 2000 to 2023, in only 2 decades, we have lost another more than 10%. So to the right, you see, 1859, the magnetic field was close to 100% strength, 100% capacity. Year 2000, down to 90%. 2010, 85%. So in 10 years, 5%. 2010 to 2020, another 5%. And then in a span of 3 years, around 70%. And like many instances where they like to cover things up, the tools that anyone, the public, would go to and use the data, etc., to see where the magnetic field strength is at. They're no longer providing that data. But doing calculations, many people are speculating that right now it should be around or less than 70% because it just keeps increasing. So something major is happening. And the Earth's magnetic field is no small feature. And you and I, we are part of the Earth. We are in the Earth's auric field, in the Earth's magnetic field. Whatever happens to the Earth happens to us. This brings about a climate shift. So right now you hear climate change, climate change, climate change, climate change. Anyone who takes a good look at climate change, many things don't add up as the mainstream narrative want to point out. They want to blame it mainly on humans, that we are at fault of changing the climate. And I'm sure we are having an effect. And yes, we should definitely change our ways not to pollute the earth and preserve nature, conserve nature, live in harmony with nature, and not consume or produce many things that turn into waste. Absolutely. But the effect that we have on the climate, when you look at the numbers, it's minimal. But the effect something like the sun has on the climate is huge. And you can see back in time where levels of CO2 were higher than they are right now, and humans didn't have this technology. What caused it then, right? These type of events, solar storms, cosmic radiation, etc. So these events coincide with major climate shifts in the past, volcanic events, biosphere stress that result in the extinction of species. Anyone has watched Ancient Apocalypse in Netflix from Graham Hancock? Great series. Basically, he talks about the Younger Dryas, which coincides with the Gutenberg excursion. And he thinks, he's theorizing that there was a major cataclysmic event caused by some meteor of sort, and it was on a global level that caused volcanic eruptions, flooding, etc. But most likely it was a pole shift, which would explain and cause all of that. Right? Could there be a coincidentally some meteorite? Yes. But if you have a pole shift, it could cause everything that you see on that series. So I highly recommend you watch that series. Very, very well made, very entertaining, very educational as well from our ancient past, or any of his books. He's a great, great guy. All right. So here we have reviews of geophysics, the role of geomagnetic field intensity in late quaternary evolution of humans and large mammals. So more data of how the geomagnetic field intensity correlated with the extinction of species and changes in the climate. Later on, if you're watching the recording, you can pause and take a really detailed look, only providing here some sort of evidence. I'm not an expert on this, but yeah, all these things are signs that these cycles have happened before, and they're about to happen again. Now, very interestingly, more signs of acceleration, which again point that we are very close to such an event, is the rapidly accelerating, that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, is the appearing of red auroras in lower latitudes. Right? Red auroras are very strange. Usually in the last few decades, to see one would correlate with a big solar storm, and they would be seen in higher latitudes. But now they're even seeing them places like Florida, Arizona, which means that, again, the magnetic field is weak and that we are more exposed to solar and space radiation. In the last 18 months, they have appeared in greater numbers than in the past 11 years combined. Again, this is a very, very strong sign of the current state of the Earth's magnetic field and where we are in this cycle. Another sign is startling satellites. They are very sensitive to solar and space energy. More than 200 satellites were lost in the last couple of months. This article from below is actually from 2022. So back then, there was a report that 40 satellites were doomed by space weather. Now, in the last couple of months, more than 200 have been lost, again, because of the increase of space radiation. So what will happen? The good and the bad news, right? So a blast from the sun of this magnitude would make most, if not all, of the electric dependent technologies to go off. Now, many people, you hear that, you think, oh my God, like the world would stop, would completely change in an instant. And it would, right? Imagine the power grid going down, modern cars, phones, internet, etc. Life as we know it in these current times would drastically change. Now, if you think about that on an energetic perspective, humans at large, we have been exposed in the last decades through an enormous amount of electromagnetic frequency that is not natural to us, that is coming from electronic devices, Wi-Fi, radio waves, you name it. And if you've done studies on EMFs, you know that they can affect your physiology, your health, your biology, but also your consciousness. So imagine all of a sudden, welcome Sam, all of a sudden not having electromagnetic frequencies of this nature. What would happen to your field of consciousness, to your auric field? If all of a sudden what it's only available is the radiation from the Earth and space radiation, this will have an enormous effect, massive effect on the human psyche and human biology. And this is what I think a blast of this size, without the interference of this technology, which in a way has been put in place to keep humanity in a frequency fence, this will unleash higher sensory perception abilities, DNA activation, and more. Right? And not only that, one of the things in this, if you live in industrialized part of the world, you no longer have that connection with the sky. You look up, you don't see stars, you see maybe one or two dots, planet here and there. But if you've ever seen, you ever been in a very, very dark place where there's no artificial light contamination, you've look up in the sky, you can't help but feel a sense of wonder. So that combination of being exposed to the true energy of the earth without all this technology, space radiation, and even the visuals of being in the cosmos, this will have an enormous positive effect on humanity. And this is what I think, what I resonate, what I intuitively feel will unleash a massive ascension. And I'll go deeper into that in a moment. So the great work, right? If you have done the proper energetic work, then you will be able to accrete these cosmic and higher dimensional downloads. A blast of the sun of that nature. It's something that you can either integrate, accrete, or that it can cause the opposite. But it can cause, again, this is what when I study this information and I connect to this event, what I feel is an expansion of the auric field and overall consciousness. Because again, the sun, it's very powerful. The sun, in a way, by many teachers, and it's a portal. You have spaceships and beings coming in and out. It's a being. It's conscious. It's alive. And you'll see how, in a way, the sun, I always say no one can rescue us. If there's someone that can rescue us, it's the sun. You'll see why. You can perceive, experience, and ascend into a different timeline and dimension if you've done the proper work, if you can accrete that light, if you have the mindset, the coherence, you're anchored, this will transform you. And this is what would be light accretion, right? Where when it happens, you are in an optimal state. Your energy centers, your DNA template, your nadis, your meridian lines, your chakras, your brain centers can process this energy and move it through your auric field. So in a state of openness, when you are clear, that energy comes in and just lights you up. It literally lights you up, turns you on. On the other hand, if you are filled with energetic blockages, unprocessed emotions, unresolved traumas, you have a toxic body, right? Because the physical body is actually very important as well. Then this energy can be very shocking because it can cause molecular compaction, meaning that it will blast you, and one of those resistances and blockages will be triggered and moved in such a way that it will cause, a violent reaction, but it will clear many of those. Again, like a very strong purge. I prefer to go the harmonious way, but many people will experience this where they just, they'll seem to be going through the dark night of the soul, and all of a sudden open up. However, if you're prepared, you're already open, that means more activation, more light accretion, and thus a higher ascension. Because when you talk about ascension, where are you ascending to? We live in a multi-dimensional universe. Dimension 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It all depends on what you resonate with, what you can tune into. Right? So the global mass ascension event, many people will experience ascension in different ways and with different kind of destinations, so to speak. Right? It all depends on what's your level of openness, and how much energy can you accrete and process. And time is tied to our consciousness, right? Time and space are interconnected. As you move through space, you experience time. If you've ever been in a transcendental state of consciousness, and you certainly know that time, when you are, whether it's meditation, doing a shamanic journey, holotropic breathing, you can get into these states where time seems either to go really slow or really fast, right? And that's another sign that if you notice, if you look at the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and back, you keep going back. I'm 40 years old. You might be in your 50s, 60s, 30s. You might have the sense that time is moving faster. Anyone here has had that experience? Probably you have. So when this happens, this solar radiation, cosmic radiation, this blast from the sun, and you can accrete this, your perception of time will happen. All right. So how do they want to prevent this from happening? In my opinion, it's a futile attempt. They are desperately trying to prevent this because, as I mentioned in the newsletter, this is a survival issue for these beings who have made Earth their home. Basically, is not to go into the whole story, but basically they destroyed their homes. They destroyed their own DNAs, and now they cannot accrete the life force currents directly from source. So now they've become some sort of like parasitic type of being, where they need to extract energy from the outside instead of directly from source. And so they found Earth very abundant in energy, and they want to extract the energy from Earth. And this is why you can see in our society how many things are of this nature, right? You come here, you incarnate, and you look at society. How many of you have had this experience where you think, like, this doesn't make sense? Why can't we live in harmony with each other, cooperate, share all the resources? It's so abundant, this world, so magical. Why do we have to live, borders and countries and earn a living? It doesn't make sense, right? That's because you are probably a being where you came from a reality more advanced, more evolved. And now you're here on a mission, you forgot. And this is how it moves here, right? Where they paint this picture that there are limited resources and we are overpopulated and all these things that are just imbued with lack mentality. So they have been poisoning the water, the air, the soul, and the bodies of people to keep them in this low frequency state. Your physical body is very important. Many people say, no, you're not the physical body. There's some truth to that, but not really. Why? Because your physical body, you're a multidimensional being. As long as you're incarnated, a part of you, identity, is the physical body. And you are meant to bring transcendence into the body, not transcend the body. Right? You can transcend the body, you can disincarnate and continue to evolve and reincarnate again, but you can bring transcendence into the body and ascend with the body, okay? Again, the body is made out of energy, just like everything else, but it's part of your multidimensional anatomy. It's connected to your first chakra, your first strand of DNA, your subconscious mind. Is part of who you are. It's not the totality of who you are. Many people identify solely with the body, and that's what causes, the illusion. You are the body. And when your body is healthy, in an optimal state, it's easier to have an enlightening, awakened experience here on Earth. Just take relationships, for example. Right? When you don't feel good, it's harder to be more compassionate, more kind, loving. When you feel great, you're energized, full of energy, vitality. It's just easier to be kinder, compassionate, loving, peaceful, because you feel great. Toxic pharmaceutical products that contain parasites, nanotechnology, heavy metals, programming fear, anxiety, lack, unworthiness, competition, shame, guilt, hatred. Just turn on the news, see Hollywood movies, and it's a constant bombardment of programming with all these frequencies. Gender ideology, they're trying to rip away the family structure. The honoring of the divine masculine, the honoring of the divine feminine, the celebration of each, the polarity of each, how they work with each other. Now they're just confusing a lot of people. And, I'm someone that believes that no matter what you choose, you should be happy. You should be treated with respect. So if you want to identify with whatever you want to identify, good for you. Be happy. Do it. Follow your bliss. Absolutely. But when you see that it's a propaganda, that there's an agenda, things start to not make sense and make sense from a kind of ill intent way. Racism, divide and conquer, right? Us versus them. Wars and economic certainty, misuse and abuse of AI. So this is what I was talking earlier, this dependence on technology. And it's a great tool. Like, for example, AI could be used in a beautiful way. If AI is used with the intent of cooperation, for evolution, making tedious tasks irrelevant, now taking away wage-safe jobs, it could be amazing. But usually what they'll do is they'll try to use it, misuse it, and abuse it. But they need this for control. If the sun, we go through this event and the sun sends a major blast, all of this will be gone. All of this technology. So if you are concerned about AI, etc., don't worry. Maintain the integrity of your body. I'm certainly not going to be one of those who will turn into a cyborg. That it's in the plans. They want it to happen. Not for me. I'll live in a very different society. No, thank you. But even those who partake in that, once the sun blasts a solar flare of that nature, all bets are off. That's off. And the fake alien invasion. You may have seen that recently. They're talking about aliens, congressional hearings, disclosure this, disclosure that. They want to control that narrative. Why? Because again, if this geomagnetic event takes place, we have a major blast from the sun, we are exposed to this massive waves of space and solar radiation. It activates our DNA, our higher senses. You're going to start perceiving a very different reality. And that includes more than this physical world. And that will probably include entities of higher dimensional, interdimensional origins. And once the masses start becoming aware of that, it's a game changer. So that will be also a means of ascension, right? If you all of a sudden you can tune in to a higher dimensional, interdimensional being, consciousness, etc., and you can say, all right, I'm going to go through that reality. That will happen. But if they create this fake alien invasion, create the uncertainty, the fear, that many people will fall into that and lower the frequency and not take advantage of that. So it is already coming in phases and waves, but the major blast, that's like, cherry on top. That's the one that really triggers the pole shift and magnetic shift. But it's been coming in waves. These solar storms and space radiation, we've been receiving this. This is why all of this is happening. The craziness around the world, the expansion of consciousness, the time acceleration. But the big one, that is the one that will happen. It happens once. So I'll talk more about that, like how you can track that, etc., if that is something that you're interested in. So how to prepare, right? The body, like I said, very important. Cleanse yourself from heavy metals. That's a big one, right? Heavy metals in the body and radiation do not mix well. Also, radiation from technologies and metals in your body do not mix well. So activated charcoal, bentonite clay, fasting, saunas, profusely sweating helps you detox from these heavy metals. Glutathione, chlorella, spirulina, green, a lot of greens, cilantro. So a lot of greens in your diet, green juices, etc. All of that will help you detox heavy metals and also help your body handle radiation better. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, some instances of people who were exposed to massive amounts of radiation, one of the things that they did was change their diet. Go raw, vegan. I'm not actually telling you to do that, to go raw vegan. It's not for everyone, but definitely increase your intake of raw fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Right? Also, supplements. Many people are low in vitamin D. Right? Where does vitamin D come from? Mainly the sun. It's a hormone. Right? Just think of that the sun, you can get one of the most vital vitamins in your body, which is a hormone. Vitamin D comes from the sun. That tells you everything, that you have a deep connection with the sun and that you can process that radiation in a way that is beneficial for you. But many people, they're living inside, they don't go out, they're not in contact with nature. So make sure to supplement with vitamin D. Have your vitamin D levels tested. This affects your sleep, your health, so many things. Vitamin D with K2 and magnesium. If you are depleted in magnesium, magnesium helps you synthesize vitamin D. If you have low vitamin D, you cannot take advantage of magnesium, and if you don't have magnesium, you cannot take advantage of vitamin D. So make sure to supplement in those. Those are two of the things that most people are deficient in, right? Those of you who are a member of Enlightenment, there's a module on physical body mastery. I go into greater detail on how to get your body into the best optimal state do that. Iodine, good source of iodine. Take a little bit here, helps you cleanse from fluoride, which is really toxic for you and helps with radiation. So have that in mind. Exercise, move the body, direct contact with nature as well, so that you can get your body in the rhythm of nature and cultivate your sexual energy. It's another big one, right? So that's how you prepare the body in a nutshell, right? This is a time to be strong, to be flexible, to be vibrant. So if you have been considering changing your physical health, do it. This is extremely important. Get your 3D affairs in order as well. Get out of debt, manifest abundance. Debt produces a lot of unconscious guilt. Get out of debt, produce abundance. Why? Because, look, in a way, you have to live like this won't happen, right? Because right now, is this a reality? No. So have your affairs in order. Also, abundance can help you if you want to get your body healthy, your emotions, your spirit, if you want to move to another location, if you want to fulfill your mission in terms of having resources to build experiences or events where you can help people evolve, usually money is needed. So right now is also the moment to focus on manifesting abundance. It's an energy, master it. Emotions. I talked about this in the newsletter. Learn how to process your emotions. In Enlightenment membership, go to the processing emotions module and master that technique. It's one of the best techniques that you can master. And once you learn how to unwind, process your emotions every day, it will lead you to attain greater states of expansion, fluidity, and this also helps having a stronger body, having a clear mind, and being able to accrete these energies, these higher dimensional downloads. Because, again, these higher dimensional downloads come to you, which we've been receiving. As I explain all these signs of these red auroras, the weakening of the magnetic field, we are experiencing this. You have unresolved emotions, they will come to the surface. They will be rattled, shaken, and you will experience them again in a more dramatic fashion. This is why you're seeing the collective in a way. It appears to be going mad. This is what is happening. Okay. And like I said, people are orchestrating events to go in par with all this, to take advantage of this emotional, mental instability of the masses. The mind, practice inquiry. So inquiry, there's a method by Byron Katie where you ask 4 simple questions. Anytime a negative thought comes to you, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I feel when I believe that thought? Who would I be without that thought? And then the turnaround of that thought. It's a beautiful process. You can find it on YouTube, online. 4 simple questions. Read higher frequency books. Books are portals, audiobooks or physical books. Read them. Okay. Nourish your mind. Because right now, again, like I said, we are being bombarded by higher dimensional frequencies, by a lot of propaganda, and there's a lot of things going on at once. You want your mind to be sharp, to be strong, to be anchored in higher principles, standards, and values. Reprogram your subconscious mind. Read this book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And if you want to take it to a deeper level, do a psyche session. My wife does psyche, and it's just a wonderful tool to reprogram your subconscious mind in a matter of minutes and actually test that the shift has occurred. We've been doing that in our lives and our experience of life. Not so much like, yes, our lives on the external have changed, but more so the inner reality, like how we are relating to ourselves, how we're relating to each other has completely changed. And meditation, it's time proven. It just works for your brain, for your mind. And what I actually do, if I combine, my meditation, usually I meditate 30 minutes to an hour a day, not every day, but most days of the week. I've gotten back to it because I took some time off, and oh my God, now that I'm back, I'm like, why did I stop meditating? And so what I do is put on my headphones with some meditation music or binaural beats, and I start processing emotions. If there are any emotions that I've been experiencing or that have been triggering me, I start processing emotions. I do energetic clearings or activations with the codes. I can do inquiry, or sometimes just simply like chant a mantra. It's life-changing. I can notice is when I meditate, my day is completely different. When I don't meditate, I see it, right away. Just like exercise. You exercise frequently, then you don't exercise, you notice it in the body. And then spiritually, energetically, transmute soul fragments. So do the sessions from enlightenment or any energy healing technique, methodology that you have that can allow you to clear your karma, transmute soul fragments, activate your DNA. Whatever you can do to embody more of your higher self, do it. Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, plant medicines, energetic work, DNA activation, working with enlightenment, the harmonic resonance skills, whatever it is, whatever you resonate with, do it. This is a time to step up, to be really consistent, okay? And like I said, if you want, you can monitor the sun, send me a private message, and I'll kind of share with you the details of how you can monitor the sun. If you want to do it very closely, want to know what is happening every day with the sun, or if you want to just know when a massive solar flare has taken place so that you have time to prepare, you can do that. Let me know, and I'll send me an email, and I'll send you the information. All right. Now, frequency is key, right? Changing and raising your frequencies will guarantee that you resonate with the most brilliant probable future and make it your present reality. So this is how you get ready. The beauty is that, yes, this massive ascension event that is set to happen in the near future can be a motivation for you to step up your game, and doing so will enhance the now, which is the best thing that you can do. So continue to live life to the fullest. Like I said, many people see this information, they start freaking out. They start going into fear, into panic. They go into survival mode. How can I survive if a cataclysm happens? I think differently. How can I thrive? How can I ascend? Right? And of course, your intent will dictate your reality, right? And many people will ascend either way, right? Many people in these events, many people leave their body one way or the other. Some people, grab the popcorn. It's going to be an incredible movie. For some people, it's going to be, this transcendental sci-fi enlightening movie. For others, it's going to be a cataclysmic movie. Either way, they will ascend. But like I said, depending on their current state and how prepared they are, they will send to a different space-time location, different dimension, okay? But right now, you can see these 5-dimensional frequencies coming in, right? 5-dimensional frequencies, throat chakra, the truth. The truth is being revealed. Many people think of apocalyptic times, and when we talk about apocalypse, many people think, cataclysm, catastrophes, etc. But if you study the word apocalypse and the root of it, Greek root, means to reveal, to uncover. And so this is what's happening. The heart chakra, the chakra of love, of trust, of openness. We're moving beyond the ego, not killing the ego, but bringing transcendence into the ego, to rebirth the ego, to experience. And so for that, the heart is opening, the truth is being revealed, right? So focus on ascending your consciousness and you'll be ready for anything. Don't waste time worrying about a non-existing future. Yes, like I said, this seems like a very charged probable future, which the probabilities of happening are high. But like I said, anything is possible, right? And who knows, life is not guaranteed, Maybe tomorrow you'll disincarnate, or next month, or me. And I never got to see that event. If I'm worrying all the time, what a waste of time. But I see it as a reminder. I see it as something empowering, like a wake-up call, getting ready for this event, but still living life to the fullest, right? Well, sorry about that, Judy, but as you know, he is very okay, and you'll see him. You'll reunite with him. He's doing very well. All right, so here's the thing. This webinar, I initially said, okay, I'm going to give you all this information, and then we'll go into all this energetic work. As I did the webinar, I received some kind of intuitions and informations on a couple of things. And what I'm feeling right now is, this is what I would like to do. I think it would be ideal to actually pause it for today and then meet up again, thinking about maybe next Tuesday or Thursday, same time, and go straight into the energy work and the visualization. And a couple of things, like I just feel this calling again to meditate prior to that, like coming real clear, and I would invite all of you to do that. Like prior, I'll send all of you an email of the date and time. If you cannot make it live, don't worry, the recording works just as fine. Like, we'll simply focus on that. You can put on your headphones, sit back and relax. But I feel the need to come in, because usually when I give webinars, I talk fast. I'm in this state, and I can connect to my higher self. I can slow down my rhythm, but I don't know why I'm feeling called of slowing down even more and going into that meditation and that activation directly from that space. Another thing is that I was doing the webinar, sometimes I create codes for the webinar, specific codes. So I created one specifically for this one. And some things came to me that I want to add to the code as I was giving the webinar. So I want to add some more intense and some more frequencies with that. So let me know. That sounds good to you. Judy says, perfect. Let me know in the chat. You're good. Say yes. Again, I think feels right. And also then you would have this kind of webinar separate which if you want to study again, you can do so. And then the other one, which is going to be just the meditation, energetic work on a separate session. You can click, go right into it, and you can use it as a activation meditation. You can repeat on its own. All right. So I will send you an email. Probably, within 24 hours with the date. Like I said, Tuesday or Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do that, activating your DNA, your chakras, other energy centers with the Mass Ascension Brilliant Harmonic Resonance Code, clearing cords to the matrix, which is something that, I received this idea. It's like, let me cut cords with the matrix. Did it. It's amazing. And the guided visualization for that brilliant timeline shift. All right. So I will be uploading this recording. I'll be sending you the link. Those of you who are in enlightenment, you'll access it in the same page where you access the previous webinar recordings. Those of you who signed up for this webinar only, I will be sending you a separate link. All right. Look forward to the next session with you guys, and it's going to be amazing. Thank you so much.